Hello, Coach Jason here, and today I want to talk about controlling the center of the board. As you see highlighted in the red squares here, we want to control these squares. The person who controls these squares is going to have more freedom of movement of their pieces. They're going to be able to limit their opponent's ability to move. So I'm just going to kind of show you what you're looking for. So I'm only going to move for white. So this isn't really a realistic scenario, but ideally you want to try to control the center of the board. You should not be moving pawns in the opening unless they are attacking or occupying the center of the board or aiding in the development of your pieces. So you want to try to develop your bishops, get them towards the center of the board. You want to develop your knights to the center, as opposed to, black might do something, or well, a player that doesn't know what they're doing very well, they might develop their knights over here to the side of the board instead. But you're not going to have any central control from there. That knight there on h6 is not controlling center squares, where these knights here, this knight here is attacking these two squares, or controlling those two squares. And then this other knight here is controlling these two squares. Not to mention, these knights being centralized, they're more powerful, okay? The pieces in general will be more powerful if they're towards the center of the board. So moving back to black's misplaced knight over here, he's attacking two forward square because he's on the rim. If he was instead on the center of the board like this knight is actually controlling four forward squares and has the possibility to go to four other squares, 8 total squares. Sometimes they're called an octopus, the knight, when they get close to the center, because they can attack with 8 arms essentially. But these centralized knights have way more power than a knight over here on the rim would have. Again, this knight here has these 4 squares that it's attacking, including 2 central squares, which is really important. So ideally, maybe you also get this bishop out here or here, something like that, and then you would castle and get your king off the back rank. So this is kind of a fully open position, and you want to try to develop your pieces and control the center. This is a loose bishop that you have to keep in mind. You're always going to be wary of that. Okay, we have here a game that I played against a student. So this is an excellent move at the beginning of the game. She's attacking the center of the board, both these central squares, developing the knight nicely, but it kind of ends after she develops these knights. And now this is a pretty common idea that a lot of beginner chess players will do. They'll push their pawns in order to get their rooks out, but rooks really aren't great in the opening. There's too much congestion out there, especially if your opponent is working on controlling the center of the board. Now, as I did mention earlier on the video, you don't want to move a pawn unless it attacks the center of the board or it aids in developing your pieces. So the idea behind this g6 push is to develop the bishop to g7 there. That is why that is there. So a little bit strange move. The idea is to get the bishop where it will control that long diagonal. Again, the center of the board. And now my opponent has got both the rooks out. Again, this is kind of a beginner idea. A lot of times they'll try to get the rooks out because they're the most understandable pieces. They are powerful, so they're fun to use, but it's just too dangerous for the rooks in the opening. They're too valuable. So I attack here, and she's trying to save her rook. She really didn't have great squares. She could have went back. That's a mistake, and I do win that knight. And you can see that I'm completely controlling the center of the board. She spent all this time trying to develop her rooks, and she really doesn't have a lot of maneuverability. So I go for the trade here, and I win even more material. And I've got complete control of the center of the board here. My bishop's got this diagonal here. And, really you want to get your king protected, and she hasn't done that here. And this all just comes to an end here with this double check, actually. This is double checkmate. And a double check must move your king, but there is no escape squares here. So this was the end of the game. That is checkmate. These 4 squares with your opening, you want to get your bishops involved. You want to get your knights towards the center. And eventually you want to get your king castled as well. So that's kind of the gist of the opening. It's not, don't necessarily want to memorize openings, but you do want to try to develop your pieces efficiently and control that center of the board. Okay, that's the end of this video on controlling the center. Hope you'd enjoyed it, and have a great week. All right, bye-bye.